So good evening. Thank you all for being here on a light snow night in Kansas City. I'm really ecstatic about this exhibition, Denzil Forrester, Duppy Conqueror. You know, when we first heard about this, it seemed like a long time ago. I can't really hardly believe that it's actually here, that tonight's the night, although it's really tomorrow night. So everybody here tonight is kind of getting a sneak preview here. You can take a look if you haven't already, or do it after this great panel we're going to have. But you'll be the first to see this exhibition, which I think is going to be, or is going to be, one of the best exhibitions in this region right now. Quickly, I think, you know, Erin's going to thank a lot of people, but I particularly, I want to thank Erin, and I want to thank the board of the Kemper for their vision for this exhibition, for their commitment to it. This is not an easy exhibition to do. A lot of the work here is loaned from collections internationally, and it took a lot of commitment. So I want to thank Erin for that. I also want to thank Stephen Friedman Gallery and Denzil for the confidence in this institution to make this the United States debut of Denzil's solo exhibition. This is a certain period of his work, a later period of his work, and his second debut for the earlier period of his work will be at the ICA Miami. I believe it starts in May. And we're also very thankful for the collaborative relationship with ICA Miami, both in terms of the exhibition and the upcoming catalog that don't know exactly when that'll be out, but it will be out, and it'll be good. As I said, hard exhibition to do. If you want to have these kind of exhibitions in the Kansas City region, it takes a lot of support. We've had a lot of support, but just in case you were wondering, you can still support this exhibition. So think about that. If you're moved by this or know anybody that is, you can support it, and we'd be grateful. All right, so tonight we got a great panel. We've got Gean from the ICA, we've got Denzil from Cornwall, and we've got our own Erin Dziedzic. We've got Dub, we got Ghosts, we got Diaspora, we got police, we got politicians, we got Rasta businessmen. And I think you're going to hear a little bit about all of that. And with that, I'll turn it over to this panel. And thank you again, Denzil, for being here. And I couldn't be more excited. Thank you all for being here, and enjoy the exhibit and the panel. Oh, you want a microphone?
Hi, good evening. My name is Erin Dziedzic. I'm the director of curatorial here at the Kemper Museum. Before we begin, I want to thank our exhibition lead sponsors, Stephen Friedman Gallery, our sustaining sponsors, Richard and Gloria Anderson Family Foundation, Lauren and Erica Crenshaw, RLS Illumination Fund, the J.B. Reynolds Foundation, and Todd and Emily Voth, as well as Bill and Christy Gautreaux. We also recognize Karen and Jack Holland for their support of the Visiting Artist Program here at the Kemper Museum. Their support makes it possible for us to have artists travel from everywhere. A special thanks to our museum docents and our museum members. If you're interested in becoming a member, it's really easy. Just go to the website or visit our museum shop. It'll take a few seconds. I want to also thank our staff. They did an incredible job over the past 3 weeks. I also want to thank Artworks, who came in and really helped us cross the finish line with installing this exhibition. So I want to extend a special thank you to them because they've been working so hard. I am so pleased to welcome Denzil Forrester and Gean Moreno, director of the Knight Foundation Art and Research Center at ICA Miami. Gean and I are working together on developing a catalog for Denzil that will encompass scholarship and images on works from the late 1970s to today. So one of the reasons it's not here is because we need to photograph this show. So, you know, there's certain things you can't do in publishing before you finish something else. So stay tuned. I'm sure it'll be a really beautiful book. Kemper Museum is presenting the exhibition Duppy Conqueror, which opens tomorrow evening, technically, At 6 p.m. However, we're pleased to give this audience a special preview of the exhibition. We worked really, really hard to make that happen. So if you didn't see it on your way in, please make sure you take some time after the exhibition and you can reference some of the works that we'll be talking about tonight. And then I also want to mention that at the opening, there was a fantastic playlist that was inspired by Denzil. You heard it earlier tonight. That playlist will continue, and DJ Joe Straws will be DJing tomorrow night with additional music that's inspired by Denzil's playlist. So this exhibition is in many ways focused on the history and culture of music, and dub and reggae in particular. So I think that's kind of a key element, so we wanted to make sure we added that in. The exhibition presents 30 years of expressive painting drawings by Cornwall, UK-based artist Denzil Forrester MBE. I don't want to leave that out. Taking inspiration from London's dub, reggae culture, and the clubs of the 1980s, Forrester's working process is analogous to creating versions or reconfigurations of the same music track. Forrester's numerous sketches from this period, made in the semi-darkness of urban dance halls, continue to inform his paintings today. Born in Grenada in 1956, Denzil Forrester moved to London in 1967. He lives now and works in Cornwall, UK. He received his BA in Fine Art from the Central School of Art in London in 1979, and an MA in Fine Art from the Royal College of Art in London in 1983. He was awarded the decoration of Member of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire in December of 2020. Forrester received the Morley Fellowship from Morley College, London in 2019, a Harkness Fellowship in New York in 1986 to 88, and a scholarship by the British School in Rome in 1983. His collections range from the Tate in London to the Harris Museum and Art Gallery in Preston, England, Morley College in London, England, and many, many others. A large-scale public artwork by Forrester for Brixton Underground Station, London, was unveiled by Transportation for London in September of 2019. So if you're riding the tube, check it out. Before we begin, I'd like to show just a short video that Denzil provided of him being interviewed in his studio. Was that in the 80s? Late 80s?
90s, yeah.
Okay,
80s, yeah.
late 80s, early 90s by British writer Benjamin Zephania, giving us a peek into the elements of his studio practice, and then we'll kind of continue from there. So.
But there is one other artist who I've heard paint subjects familiar to me. He's Denzil Forrester. I'm told that he went through the art school system.
So Denzil, tell me something now. Look, are you an art expert? I heard that you studied and got qualifications. Tell me.
Yeah, I went to Central School of Art and did the Royal College for 3 years. Then I went to Rome for 3 years.
Rome
Fellowship. Yeah.
In Rome, in Italy?
In Italy, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was amazing. That was beautiful. This one is a blues session. Jashaka at the control.
Jashaka is a sound system, yeah?
He is a sound system. He also makes records as well. But he's amazing look on the sound system. He dance all night and play music and sing as well.
All right.
Yeah. No, he's a really amazing performer. Lots of energy. It took me quite a while to get the whole thing together. I had to do lots and lots of studies, drawings for it, and then put the whole thing together in the studio. So I'll go drawing at night, and during the day I'll paint at home.
I must admit, one of the reasons why I like this is because it's a blues dance. It's a blues, and it's like, people think of reggae and they hear reggae in clubs and everything, but you have to experience it in a blues dance. And I mean, to some people it looks strange. Why is everybody standing around the person who's playing the record, you know?
Yeah.
And there's something about it which is just, I try to capture in poetry all the time. Never quite get there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. This one is a smaller, more detailed study, similar to the big one. And you could see this one, there's bars going across, because I was behind the bar at the time, drawing the drinks bar, that is, because it's a nice surface, because I've got a full A1 paper, because this place is a jam-pack. You hardly can stand, you know, and sweating and sound and music and noise.
I mean, I know what the atmosphere is like. Everybody's out kind of being cool and having a good time. What do they think when they see you sitting behind the bar painting?
In the beginning, it was quite difficult for them to accept me, and I was getting all sort of funny looks. But after a couple of months, I was accepted, by the group and everything. And people wanted me to go home and draw them and the family, People would come up to me and do huge poses and say, draw me. So after that, I was like part of the crowd myself. Yeah.
I can really identify with this simply because it looks like me. And this don't look like me at all.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's a little big,
God, this was very big.
brighter one. This one is.
I mean, you don't have this sitting in your front room, do you?
Huh, why not? No, it was stored away, in fact.
And I noticed this is a lot brighter.
Yeah, this one I did again in Italy. This is the first painting I did when I went to Italy. And I thought, what I'll try to do, the first thing I do when I get there, to do a spontaneous painting of my reaction towards that environment. And of course, everything the lights is much more intense, and there's lots of beautiful colors, oranges and browns and stuff.
So you think life in Britain is a lot duller?
No, I don't think life in Britain, the light is. The
light is, not the
sun
light.
is. The sun is a bit duller.
It's getting warmer. Have you heard? It's getting warmer.
Well, yeah, it's getting much warmer. But no, it's, again, you see, it's a lot, the people tend to be, seems warmer because the atmosphere,
The atmosphere is
much
warmer.
warmer, so people tend to be a little bit
And
warmer
that's
as
where
well.
all the colour comes from.
Yeah.
This one won a prize for you.
Yeah, I won a prize in 1987 for Best Painting at the Royal Academy Summer Show.
And get you loads of money.
Well, a bit, yeah.
£500. Well, I got £500 to spend, and I think I can afford this. I must admit, I do like it. It's,
Yeah.
how much is it? £499. 9 pence.
Should make it 500.
I saw this video just a couple days ago, and I thought it was really important to start with because I think one of the really important aspects, despite the fact that Denzil makes these incredibly large, immersive paintings with so much energy and really feeding off the energy of where he is, who he's around, I think that there's a really core element of drawing. That's part of his practice, and you can see some in the exhibition here. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit, Denzil, about how drawing influences your practice, how it's such an important element, where it takes you, and how it leads into your paintings.
Okay. Well, without going to these nightclubs and making the drawings, I couldn't have made those paintings. So I'm at art school, Central School of Art, late 70s. You know, you're doing your degree, the first probably year or two, you find your ground and decide, oh, well, I've got to find something to actually that really I want to paint about. So I accidentally started going to nightclubs because I lived in Hackney, Stoke Newington area, and there was endless nightclubs in Dalston. That's where most of the nightclubs were. About 10 minutes from my house. And I've got lots of younger brothers, got 5 younger brothers, and they were big time into the music themselves. But because I was so focused on going to art school and drawing and the model, drawing landscape, you know, learning my craft basically. And then at that time in the 70s, we used to go to Europe a lot. Art schools just, you know, they had lots of money to send students to Europe and see, you know, Pompidou or the Louvre or something like that, or even the Orangery, Monet's lovely painting. And you realize these artists, they had something specific that they wanted to work on, you know something they really were give their all to. And I realized I had to find something that means something to me. So when I went to this nightclub, I just went accidentally to just party. And then one night I took an A4 sketchbook and I did some scribbles, and I really liked it. And the next time I decided, I'll take a bigger sketchbook. And just, I really thought, this is getting better. I'm really getting enjoying. And next time I take an A1 paper, just like the drawings in the show, A1 paper. And the nice thing was about the club that I went to, it was a really brilliant DJ, Jazz Shaka. He was not like a normal DJ. He mainly focused on heavy dub reggae music. So about 80% of the people who went to these clubs believed in Rastafarian. Not totally, but half of them probably did, but some of them were flirting with it. And the dance were incredible because at that time, a lot of people were into the martial arts, Kung Fu. So they would do a mixture of Kung Fu and, mixed with the heavy dub dancing. And they used to have like a monkey dance, so they'll get down on the floor and do all this type of movement. And a lot of these places used to be old cinemas that were converted into nightclubs. So you have spaces like this, big high ceilings. So it was really great. And then I used to work at the play center myself, working with young kids. And I think that was the thing that started me off, working with young kids in play centers. They'll have end of terms party, and they'll have a DJ come in and play some reggae music. And that started me off as well. But once I started taking the bigger papers to the clubs, and I had to have my own table, pastels, charcoal, and all that type of stuff. It took me quite a while to focus, I think, and realize that's because you look at it now and it probably looks easy, but it took me quite a while to actually just focus on just that. So I did about 4 or 5 nightclub paintings for my MA, for my degree show. And I like them and they work. And I think helped me to get to the Royal College because they want to see that there is something there that you can focus on, some progress. So I got into the Royal College, and when you get into the Royal College then you had to have a year off before you could start. So they give you a year off to chill out, do what you want to do. And I spent that year just going to nightclubs, making endless drawings. Now those drawings, like I said, they were very important. And it took me a while myself to understand them. So I was doing them to the length of a record, which is about 4 or 5 minutes in those days. Because I wouldn't draw all the time, obviously. So I'm there for 5 hours a night. The heavy dub doesn't start till 1. So the club is split into 2 days, the disco part, R&B and disco. And then in the basement was the heavy dub. So I'll start about 10 o'clock with the more disco part, with people chilling out, relaxing, getting ready for the heavy dub at 1. But it was good for me as well, because I've been warming up, so the club is half empty. And they're big, these places are big Victorian palaces. They're like massive pubs, so the spaces are quite big. And come 1 o'clock, Jazz Shaka comes with a big truck outside, big speakers, 6, 10 feet high. And they'll have about 4 or 5 guys carrying speakers inside. Big mono system, not stereo, valves, valve, 50s stuff, which is really brilliant for heavy dub reggae music because it's like a punch bag, not stereo. And, so Shaka will take about an hour to set up, stringing everything together, setting up his valve amplifier. And then a big paper bag of wigged, heavy wig will come out on the deck, light up, Niddle comes on the record, and away we go for the night. But I don't know how this guy did it. He's still alive. He must be in his 70s. He's totally believing what he was doing. I think it's a bit like a priest. But the people who went to this nightclub, you could see this was like freedom to them. I assume they have a job doing every week, and this was like joy, freedom, the weekend, Friday, Saturday. So the main night was Friday that I used to go to. But the important thing about the drawing, which I didn't realize the importance of, although I was using all these drawings, that was inspiring me to do all these paintings, I didn't realize, I had 2 years of fellowships in Rome, 83, 84. Came back to London in 85, I had a job to teach at adult Molly College, Waterloo, and I didn't really want to do it because I've been painting continuously every day for about 8 years, and I didn't want to stop that. So this job was offered to me, and so I took it on, and I didn't want to do it, so I applied for another fellowship, come to New York, Harkness Fellowship for 2 years, and I got it. I was very lucky. And arrived in New York, and New York was, like house music, hip hop, Run DMC, all those lot. So I thought, yeah, I want to come to New York to go to all these heavy clubs, to do all these drawings I was doing in London for about 3 or 4 years before. And of course, the clubs in New York were totally different. You had to look like a stupid idiot to get into these clubs. You couldn't go in with paper and pencil and say, I'm coming here, because you had to come in with nothing and dress up and look nice. So I couldn't do it. So I managed. I was on Fulton Street, downtown in Fulton Street, in the city part of Fulton, Brooklyn, and Williamsburg, near the Williamsburg building. And Fulton Street then was like, it's a very long street, and the bit downtown was very nice. As you go up, it was like, bombers hit the whole bloody place. And then there was clubs up there that guys used to try and take me to. And I did manage to get into a nightclub. And I got my paper out, I had a table in my A1. And after about 2 hours of drawing, this guy came up and told me, who gave you permission to do this in the nightclub? And obviously, I was kicked out. But the main thing about coming to New York, the clubs wasn't nowhere as good as London, because I wanted heavy dub, obviously, But I didn't mind getting in and doing some drawing, with all the house music and stuff. But I found this book called The Natural Way to Draw by Kemper Museum in Astor Place, I think. And I found this book and I couldn't put it down, because this book explained to me what I was doing in those drawings at nightclub. Even though I was doing it like 3 years before, and got all the stuff that this Kemper Museum were explaining in his book. Also the drawing was called gesture drawings that I was doing. They had to do with movement, action, and expression of what you feel the people are doing out there on the dance hall in that space. And because this nightclubs in the 80s were very dark. You couldn't see what you were doing. People were smoking cigarette, weed, whatever. And of course I love it, because I couldn't see the marks I was making. But I felt what they were doing, so I was communicating that gesture onto the paper. And the best thing about those drawings, half of them, I would do about 50 a night, and half of them would capture that energy. And the next day, you'll open them out, and about 10 or 20 out of 50, you had captured that feeling at the time. And I'll use about 4 or 5 to make a painting from. But Kemper Museum, that book is amazing, because it helped me and my partner, my wife, Philippa, who is here tonight, to structure a class for the next 30 years based on the book. But the book meant a lot to me, because I was doing the stuff before. And I think there was about 2 or 3 other classes that were happening throughout America of this way of teaching. Yeah. Okay, I hope that explained a bit of the drawing. Sorry it was so long.
No, that was wonderful. Thank you. I think I'm showed an image here of just to kind of get a sense of what you're talking about with the gestural drawing. And yeah, do you have a question you want to follow up?
I don't know.
You want to tell that?
Yeah, you're on.
So first of all, thank you for the invitation, Erin, and the Kemper, and Bill for the introduction, and Denzil for letting me work with your work.
Yeah.
So actually, I wanted to go back because you dropped us like in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
Like we were at the club.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you would go back and maybe do a little biographical sketch. Just because one of the things that I think is really interesting about the show,
Yeah.
that the show I'm working on is not, is this turn to childhood memories
Yeah.
and early autobiography that seems not club.
Oh, no. Yeah, so after about 10, probably more years of doing all this mainly nightclub paintings, it's probably about the late 90s. I don't know why it happened. Occasionally, I'll just make drawings from my imagination. And I knew it was always good to draw about what you know, an experience, something you do or whatever. And I remember I came to London in '67, and I had a brilliant childhood in the West Indies with my pets and Park Lane, my adopted family for 7 years. My pets, she was a teacher, and I did lots of paintings, but there's one of the paintings in the exhibition about her. But you only realize what these people meant to you in retrospect when you're in your 30s and 40s, and they probably are dead and it's too late. So I arrived in London with a good structure because of my pets. I couldn't go to school for about 6 months. And my mom used to make bags, and there was lots of work. Arriving in London, I had bloody lots of siblings all over the place. Whereas in the West Indies, I was with a well-to-do family, and I was the only kid, basically. So I arrived in London, stayed with my mom, and I had all these new siblings I knew nothing about. And I was probably the second oldest. And I had 6 months at home, and my mom taught me to sew bags, which was good because I could help bring some money in. That was before plastic bags, so we were actually making shopping bags. So I went to school at 12, and then I'll come home at 10, and come home at 4 p.m., and we'll make bags till 10 o'clock at night. So probably in retrospect, when I look at it now, and when I went to school, probably I was a bit whacked out. So I didn't do anything much at school. After about 3 or 4 years, I realized I was in the dance section. So I had all this stuff from a really structured educational life. I was like second or third brightest in the class in West Indies, because in West Indies you had to get in front of the board and do the sums, do the reading and all that type of stuff, so everyone knew where everyone is in the class. In London, when you go to London, you could be nowhere and no one gives a damn, because you don't get up in front of the class and do anything. So I got all that happening, and after I started doing all those nightclub paintings, I started making drawings about, I suppose, my family. Not really wanted to do it, but I thought, I must draw what I know about. And I drew my family making bags in the basement to my mom and my brothers and sisters. So me and my mom was the one who make the bags, and my brothers and sisters turned the bags. And that helped me, I think that helped me a lot and made me realize what had happened to me coming from the West Indies to London. Because when you're in the mix of everything, you cannot look at yourself objectively. But doing art and making drawings and paintings, you can do. And so from drawing my family in London in the late 70s and 80s making bags, suddenly I gradually went all the way back to the West Indies and started making endless bloody paintings about me and my pets and Park Lane and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think those paintings, they're very different from the nightclub paintings, because then, not people move, I was making things up. But because I love drawing, I just got to art school at the right time when they had a life room. And so you had a life room, you could go to draw for 2 days out of the 5 days that you were there. And plus, I think it's just in you anyway. You don't have to be taught sometime. If you really want to do something, you'll get it out, it'll come out, and you'll do it. It's like the gesture drawings. No one taught me to do gesture drawings. I just went to the art club, was like what I saw in front of me, and I had to do something about it. Yeah. But the paintings about my mom and my pets in Park Lane probably haven't finished yet. Because family stuff is pretty deep and it's pretty rough. But it's nice sorting it out in the work. Because my mom died last year, she was 91. And she wrote me a letter 2 years before she died, don't come to her funeral, stuff like that. And it was pretty hard, it was pretty harsh, it was pretty nasty. But I loved her, so, you know, who cares? You know, you love your mom, what could you do? Yeah. But, yeah, shan't talk anymore about that.
You said something. You said that the personal paintings that relate more to your family are different than the nightclubs. But
yeah,
you know, in reading about your work and looking at it constantly, you know, somebody said something pretty poignant, which was that the drum of the dryer is very similar to the same circular motif of the speakers. And there's, to me, the orientation of the figures and the movement and the expression, like those things actually seem to fuse together a bit more than they are separate from each other. And so it feels like these two parts of your life are intersecting in a lot of ways.
Of course, the language, you're talking about language, circular shapes and stuff like that, they can connect, but I suppose it's the feeling in those paintings that will be different. But yeah, drawing is language, so you might do a circle of a speaker, or a circle of a drummer, or a circle of I mean, I like circular shapes, and you know, or the lights, the mosaic ball and stuff like that, or even like leaves and stuff which are oval. Because I used to have to walk through the forest a lot in Grenada. I used to have to they had, Park Lane and Muppets had two houses. They had a country house and the townhouse. And I'm talking about no electricity. People had to get water from the street. You know, lovely. And I used to have to take Park Lane's dinner for him at night. Well, at night, late evening. You're talking about 5, 6. No electric light. As soon as 6 o'clock comes, you know, you've got moonlight, and you're walking through a forest of nutmeg, cocoa, banana, the leaves and stuff like that. And it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. But if you start doing art, all those things help you so much, because you're drawing all your experience from the past into the future. All those things help. That's a beautiful thing about it when you're doing something creative in your life to do with art, because all your past, you could utilize that. It all comes back, floating back at you. And, you know, so nightclubs, forest in Grenada, you know, the mosaic ball flashing through. Like when I was doing Three Wicked Men, there's a version here, Brixton Blue. But the main version is in the Tate London. It's twice the size of the one here. So doing these 3 guys, it's Rastafarian and 2 police guys on the street. You know, you stop and search. That's happening here all the time. And then I thought, I want to bring the nightclub in. So I used the mosaic ball to create kind of leaves, you know, the circles flashing around the room. And in the middle of doing this painting, I realized, yes, I'm in the forest in Grenada, walking through the night forest with all the light coming through from the moonlight. And then you realize, yeah, I could make it more dark and scary. You know, being arrested at night and all that type of stuff. But not, you know, painting is great, you know, because just things you can do, you know. You just bring yourself, be honest, and just let yourself go. It's all in us. We all can do it, yeah.
Just like that.
Well, you got to be able to give yourself over and be truthful. Don't make it up. Be honest with yourself. You know, that's all.
But I also think with this kind of looking back at childhood memories, the flip side to that is looking at Caribbean history, right? All of a sudden you have like the drawing of Lee Scratch Perry, which is not quite the same as the Shaka ones.
No, totally.
This is like more memorializing him. And then there's the paintings of the young leaders of the Grenadian Revolution.
Norris Bishop.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Lee Scratch Perry is such a great producer, probably one of the main producers of like dub music. If you listen to a lot of good dub music, Lee Scratch Perry will be somewhere there, doing all the mixing. And I went to Jamaica just before lockdown because of Bob Marley's birthday is in February. And when I started, I joined Stephen Friedman Gallery, and I realized I have to get back to some serious drawing from nightclubs again. And there isn't that a lot of nightclubs like that in Truro. So I had an exhibition at a gallery in St. Just. St. Just is almost like Land's End, if anyone knows Cornwall. But it's an amazing gallery. It's a very contemporary gallery. And this guy from the 80s in London that I knew came to this exhibition and loved my exhibition and says, "Oh, we must go to Jamaica. And you can draw like you were drawing in the nightclubs in the 80s in London. I'm going to apply for a grant from the Arts Council so we can do that." So I was just laughing. I was thinking, God, get the money so we can go to Kingston and draw nightclubs. And come 2019, February, he wrote me saying, "Yeah, I got the grant. We can go to Kingston for 2 weeks." Bob Marley's birthday. And it was amazing. We went to all these amazing nightclubs, Kingston dub nightclubs up in the hills where Bob Marley originally used to live, and all the heavy dub nightclubs in the city of Kingston. There's a painting called Itching and Scratching. The drawing is there next to the painting. That was made in Kingston. But I came back to Cornwall, so that's the end of February, and in my local papers, Lee Scratch Perry, this guy is nearly 80, he's playing in a watering hole in Perranporth, Cornwall. So I quickly rushed down to Perranporth, saw the manager, said, "Could I come and draw Lee Scratch Perry?" I said, "Yeah, come and draw." "No, you don't have to pay. Come and just..." And it was amazing. It's like a pub. With, less people were in this space with like the amazing Lee Scratch Perry, and they're all in their 50s, 60s, most of my generation, I suppose, even older. And there was Lee Scratch Perry. I mean, it's like 6 feet away from me. And I mean, he's an amazing bloke. And so I did lots of studies close up of Lee Scratch Perry. But it's very different from, say, the Shaka. Because Shaka, I'm drawing a crowd of about 100 people, and they're going crazy, dancing to heavy dub music. So I'm drawing someone almost like a portrait type, who, yes. So it's a different energy. It's a different energy. And same like the drawing, Itching and Scratching, that was like hundreds of people. Although you're still doing gesture, but it's a feeling you have, and you have to go for it. And that feeling will guide you in that space. And you don't know what it is, but you have to give yourself over to it, and it will happen. You have to trust it and believe in yourself.
Thank you. It's a fantastic sentiment, because I think when you talk about all these different locations and places that you've been to draw and interactions that you've had with musicians, and eventually it seems like they've come full circle and are now following you to Cornwall. So,
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about this painting that you made when you first moved to Cornwall in 2012? Because it feels like another very important kind of chapter, next step, or moving into a different phase, but taking a lot of those elements that you were working on when you were in London with you.
Yeah, from Trenchtown to Porthtown. So we moved to Cornwall in 2012, but I couldn't move till 2016, basically, because I was still working and had to be 60, I had to retire at 60, so I couldn't move. Anyway, so 2016, studio is ready, moved to Cornwall. So I thought, I'll go to my local beach, Porthtown, lovely beach. about only 50 minutes from the house, and draw like I used to draw in the nightclubs. Because it's a very similar situation. On the beach, you got hundreds, probably more, particularly in the summer, endless people. And they're never still, they're always twitching and doing something silly, which is to gesture drawing, because you don't want people to stay still. But I drew them in a gesture style, but the drawing took longer, so I would spend 10, 15 minutes on a drawing. So I did about 50, 60 drawings. They were nowhere as exciting as the nightclub drawings. And then I took them to the studio, and then I started making the painting of people on the beach. And the best thing that was happening with the painting was a horizontal line where the sea meets the sky, you know, the diagonalness of it. And after about usually take me about 6 weeks to make a painting, working every day. And about 3 or 4 weeks of making this painting, I was getting a bit bored with it. So what can I do to liven up this bloody painting? I got the 3 wicked men out. And I superimposed them. So, because I've done the 3 wicked men in my life about 4 or 5 times. And I didn't realize I did them so many times. So I thought, I'm going to superimpose them in front of the beach. And as soon as I did that, the whole painting for me came alive, particularly the spaces in between, you know, the vertical figures. You know, you could see the depth. You could go back to that guy. You know, it created lots of depth. The space becomes more exciting to look at. And I thought, God, that painting helped me a lot, because I realized I was neglecting myself. I was neglecting what I really want to paint. With nightclubs and people in interior spaces in London having a good time, or my family and stuff like that. I wasn't just painting bloody Cornish beaches. I love them, and they inspire me, and I go for lovely walks in them, and because it's a very spiritual place. But that was it. They want for me to paint, yeah. But it's helped me a lot to go back. And I think after that painting, I did Stitch Up. So yeah, that's it. But it helped. Certain things help you to find yourself more, and this painting helped me a lot to find myself. Because you move to a new place and you think, oh, you should do something to do with that place. But it's in you. All you know, it's inside us what we want to do. It doesn't have to be outside. Outsiders can help, you know. Like I said, Cornwall's amazing for the light. London, you know, is covered in soot and that horrible yellow crap. But Cornwall is such a thin strip of land. Nothing settles above you. It's nice and clean and clear. And you can smell it and breathe it. That's the inspiring thing about Cornwall. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we have about 5 minutes for questions from the audience, so I want to kind of make sure, and I also want to end on a good sentiment. When Denzil says believe in yourself, I think you should listen to him. I think, you know, I have to say, like, in creating this exhibition, I think it could have been quite easy just to move through them chronologically, because there's a certain sense of understanding that way through the gesture and the mark making and things. But I think it's much more fun to kind of skip around and recognize your images of Jashaka in this room, and then how it developed, like, over the course of such a, such a great period of your career. And so I thank you for that. And it was a joy to actually kind of go in and piece a version of a puzzle together. It'll be a different version somewhere else when the work is exhibited somewhere else. But I think for here, it was really nice to kind of think about it in these different thematic areas of talking about home and personal, and how that actually is quite similar to the ways that the sound system influences. It's a community. It's a space of reflection, and where people can feel really embraced by their community there. So thank you for that. And I think we have time for a couple of questions, if anybody from the audience has any.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and talking to us. And I was wondering whether you could say something about ghosts or duppies.
Oh, ghosts. Well, yeah, ghosts, duppies, zombies. Well, that's what I was saying about walking through the forest at night in Grenada. Because when like I said, my mom used to always buy me the Bob Marley records when it came out in the 70s, Keep Me Sweet, when I'm making all the bags. So I used to listen to all these records. But then I realized, because there is another one called Duppy Day. There's all this stuff people go on. If you live in amongst nature a lot, particularly if you're in the country, you see and hear things, well, people gossip about, stuff like zombies and whatever. But when you're walking through the forest late at night, there is certain parts when I used to take Parkland's food up frame. When I'm coming back, there's a certain part on the journey where the road, there's a huge hillside with a ravine on the bottom. And I used to walk as far away from that side of the cliff as possible. There's nothing down the other side, but if I walk there, I'll imagine I'll see something, even just a crack in the trees and branches against each other, like, when the bamboos are rubbing each other, you'll start seeing things even though there's nothing there. And it creates all these illusions in your head. And those are the things that I did, the Duppy Conqueror in you. I've been in forest and stuff, like living in the country. It does play a big part of everyone's life, I think. And that's why I wanted to call it the Duppy Conqueror, not because just of the Bob Marley song Duppy Conqueror, but because of all those things that happened to me in my childhood, of being frightened by just trees rubbing against each other, bamboo rubbing against each other, and you're in the dark and no one there with you beside nature, scaring you to death. And in Carnival, they have all those things, And in Carnival is brilliant because, they make up with the mask and they pretend that they're this and that. And the West Indies is full of it, and they have all different names for it, but it's whether it's zombie, duppy, it's all the same. Yeah.
What's your favorite club?
Well, my favorite club doesn't exist anymore. Well, first of all, it was called Thebes, and then Wicked Brillos, and then Trends. And it was like 10 minutes. It was on the same road as my mom's house, Rectory Road. And the Craig twins, I don't know if you've heard of the Craig twins, two British gangsters. They used to go to it, I think in the 50s when they were alive, the 60s or anything. It's a posh flats now, most of these lovely nightclubs. The second one was All Nations. All Nations was a massive black nightclub off Maze Street. I didn't actually know this club was owned by the council, Hackney Council. It's a massive Victorian house. And there's a Jamaican guy who had it for about 30 years, and it was the oldest black nightclub in London. And the painting Dub Strobe, or Night Strobe, which there is a version of here, I only went to this nightclub once. And because it was more like a disco nightclub, so you wouldn't find a jazz shaka in there. So it's more R&B, dub, house, and stuff like that. But this nightclub had a very long room, almost like a tunnel. So I could only stay in one spot. But I didn't like it. But what it helped me a lot to do was to do one drawing for about an hour. And I did this drawing for the painting Dub Strobe, because I was stuck in this bloody spot and I couldn't go anywhere else because of the design of the shape of the room. And I decided to go on a tour of this nightclub because it's a big house. And in the basement, I was shocked. There was a lot of blokes, about 12 of them, gambling, playing dominoes. And I came over, I always come back from Italy for Christmas, spend with the family. And I went back to Rome and I did this drawing of domino hunters. And one of my favorite paintings is called Domino Hunters. I did it when I was in Italy. But it was good going to that nightclub because it gave me two lovely paintings, Dub Strobe and of course Domino Hunters. But my favorite was Thebes, and I love the name Thebes as well. But that's where Jazz Shaka played for about, I don't know, 20 years probably. Yeah. Every Friday night.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Kansas City is known for its blues and jazz. Are
Yeah.
you attending any clubs here in Kansas City?
I think we might be going to some more art stuff on Friday. But see what happens. But no, I don't. There's only so much you can do. But plus, I haven't got paper and tools with me. You need, if you're going to draw at nightclub, I mean, it would be nice to be inspired by something to do for memory. But artists' lives are it's a lot of bloody work, to tell you the truth. I'm going to Jamaica, I'm going to Kingston after Hair in February for Bob Marley's thing. And, you know, it's, yeah, so it's going to be a lot of drawings in nightclubs in Kingston. But I really love being here, and it was lost. Yes, I was telling someone I was lost yesterday because I've got a bloody expensive iPhone, but I didn't pay for roaming, and neither was. But it was great because when you're lost, things happen, and you got to talk to people. So it was lovely being lost in Kansas.